So I guess we'll get started. Good afternoon, everybody, and a warm, and maybe too warm where some people are, like Carrie. A warm welcome uh, to our friends and supporters of the Gray Panthers NYC. It's our August 27th Transformation Tuesday, Home over Hospital. We're continuing to focus on innovations in long-term care. I'm Michelle Arnaud, president, and I'm so appreciative for your support to the Gray Panthers movement, which was founded in 1970 by Maggie Kuhn. Our mission, which was set up by Maggie, is to combat ageism and promote intergenerational contact, which we strive to do every month with our webinar series. We meet on Zoom on the last Tuesday of the month, as you know. All our webinars are recorded and available on our website, gpnyc.org, with a hat tip to our talented Emily Trask. Thanks, Emily. Our intention is to provide a safe space to change the narrative for how ageism impacts our world, with the goal of making a positive difference. Hopefully, we're doing something. And for today's program, we're honored to have three distinguished guests who will provide us with insight and tools on long-term care living. So we're going to hear first from Deke Cateau, who's the Chief Executive Officer at AG Roads Atlanta, and which is the top senior rehab and long-term care provider. He'll be followed by Jeffrey All, owner and principal of Architecture, based in Lincoln, Nebraska, who's designed over 100 housing projects for older adults, including a year-long journey where he actually lived in numerous nursing homes. And we're going to end with Ron Bruno, longtime executive director, Morningside Retirement and Health Services, an independent nonprofit organization that provides NORC, naturally occurring retirement community programming, and other services to its residents in Upper Manhattan. So I'm now going to pass the virtual mic to Carrie Leljadal, who will make a few introductory remarks. Carrie.
Hi, everyone. Glad to see lots of people here I know, and there's even more that I don't. So that's better. So at Gray Panthers, we believe that the medical model of institutional nursing homes are the reflection of an ageist perspective where older adults are othered behind the walls and viewed as passive recipients rather than the individual preferences, autonomy, and their desire for a meaningful experience. This ageist system of long-term care and post-acuity care lead to an environment that prioritizes efficiency and control over person-centered care. By shifting away from the ageist assumptions and embracing more innovative models, we can better ensure that individuals who need daily care are able to live a fulfilling life with autonomy, respect, and opportunity to engage in a meaningful activities. As we work to end ageism, our Transformation Tuesday webinars are aimed at helping educate advocates and others and to improve the lives of those who live and work in long-term care today. There you go. And let's start with Deke.
Hello, everyone. Very, very happy to be here. Thank you, Carrie. Thank you, Michelle. And I think, our topic today just makes sense for Transformation Tuesdays, because I think in some sense we're going to be talking about how we transform our nation's nursing homes, which I've learned a little bit from the Gray Panthers now to know that pretty much everyone in this group is a believer. So it's good to speak to a crowd of believers. So as introduced, my name is Deke Cateau. I'm the CEO of AG Roads, a group of nursing homes in Atlanta, Georgia, nonprofit nursing homes. I'm very proud to say that we are a mission-driven nonprofit. So as you would hear, a lot of what we do and most of what I'm going to talk about largely benefits indigent residents, those on Medicaid. And to an even larger extent, those living with dementia. So our organization is celebrating 120 years this year. We actually started off as the Home for the Incurables. That was our name. So it kind of tells you again transformation where we have started from to where we are at today. And in many cases, our homes still look very, very institutional. But the project I'm going to tell you all about that we recently completed our car project, hopefully is the first of a complete transformation of all of our homes. Next slide, please. Yeah, so a little bit more about our history. Again, largely Medicaid residents. We have about 500, close to 500 staff members who we're going to talk about a little bit. I think as we talk about design and changing the design of our nursing homes, I think there's a lot of work to be done to make these homes also comfortable and palatable for our staff, who work in these homes as well. We as an organization have gotten many, many accolades, which I'm not going to go into too many of them, but we consider ourselves a very good provider of nursing home care, and we are all in for the future for nursing home care. We are not like a lot of these providers that are trying to get out of the nursing home business. We see the need for it demographically and otherwise. Next slide, which is going to be a video, I think, of our project that I want to start off by showing you all our start to finish montage of it. So if we could play the video. All right. So in 3 minutes, I just showed you guys, the culmination of what actually took about 10 years for organization to bring to bear. And I'm proud of those 10 years. I know when we talk about the need for transforming our nursing homes, we talk about the immediate need. But I think what was important about our project is how long we have recognized the need to change how our nation's nursing homes look, feel, and we started working on it many, many years ago. My role with the company then was chief of strategy. And we literally started exploring new models of care and new models of housing. I like to put it in that order because we think the model of care literally came first and was most important. My first piece of advice would be, unless you are ready from a cultural perspective in your environments, to give the proper care, in our case, person-directed care. Building a fancy new building is really should not be your first alternative. So I give my staff the saying, garbage in, garbage out. So before we even thought about the physical plant, we started physically training our staff in the proper way of person-directed care, in the proper way of dementia care. I see Michelle from the Eden Alternative is on the call, but the Eden Alternative actually was the organization that we used to help us work on transforming our staff's culture. And that started way back in 2015. Even a little bit before that, this concept started with a question that was asked of us by our board chair. We were in 2 days of strategic planning. And towards the end of the second day, we're all tired. And David asked the question of us, who are the most vulnerable of those that we serve? And the senior leadership huddled together. And really, it was an easy answer. We responded to David. It was those living with dementia. At that time, and still now, as you know, nursing homes, the statistics say about 50 to 60%. In our cases, and in most cases, the reality is upwards of 75% of our residents in existing nursing homes living with dementia. So those were the most vulnerable. Then David asked of us again, well, then why is our name AG Rhodes Health and Rehab? At that time, like most nursing homes, we were caught in that quagmire of Medicare reimbursement and rehab. So like most nursing homes, we had changed our name in the 2000s to Health and Rehab. And we told David that was for financial reasons, right? Because that was our payment system. And his response to us was that as a mission-driven nonprofit, if that's the reason, we've got it all wrong. And he said our job is to find a way to take care of those residents living with dementia, the most vulnerable of us, in the most dignified way as possible. And he said, we'll work on how we get paid for that. We'll work on how that happens. So I would say that this whole project was born out of a real pure, sense of mission and of taking care of the most vulnerable, regardless of their ability to pay for it. Another key step on that journey, and I talk about the work that we went into it. One of the first things I did was assemble a team of us to go investigate models nationwide and actually worldwide. So we looked at the greenhouses here. We looked at several housing models, not just in the state of Georgia, but throughout the United States. And the interesting part of that journey was the team that we assembled to actually go overseas to the Netherlands and look at household models in the Netherlands. That team comprised of myself, several of our folks from operations. We also took some board members. We took some people of who we would think would be potential funders or help fund this project. But a very important part of that team, and Jeff, you would appreciate this, is that we took an architect with us. And what's interesting, and everyone at that time told us we were crazy, they would not be able to do it. We selected of our panel of architects, we selected a residential architect, someone who had never built a nursing home a day in his life. And the reason we wanted that is we wanted this to feel like a home, not like a nursing home. We knew there would be an additional layer of cost at some time to bring in a nursing home architect to ensure the construction fidelity of the project, regulations and stuff like that. But we really wanted this to be residentially driven. We wanted to build homes. That was 2015. We went to the Netherlands. We came back. We took the best of what we saw locally, internationally, and we started planning. They were about 2 years involved in our planning. What we liked, what we didn't like, what were the good parts. As we visited, we spoke to a lot of administrators that pointed out a lot of practical realities to us. I caution people, as far as you want to go with this concept, household concept, which is great, keep in mind that it is a nursing home and the residents that we do take care of in many cases need a higher acuity of care. So some of the design elements have to take some of that acuity of care into. A great example are carpet finishes, which I give people as an example, which I love, and I've worked in environments that use a lot of it as well. But if the organization, one, doesn't have the capacity to replace carpet when it should be replaced or when it needs to be replaced, then you may look for other style finishes for that. And there's so many now. I'm sure Jeff will talk about a lot of that are available. So we started out this project really with four main goals. The most important goal for us at that time was simply preserving the dignity of the agent experience. My communication director did this slide, and she put infectious disease first. But I'll be honest with you, the dignity was the first point, not infectious disease. The infectious disease concern in reality, quite frankly, came after COVID or during COVID. While we were building this, we realized this building, the existing building of 130 residents, had the most cases of COVID in all three of our homes. The reason it had the most cases of COVID was that we also had the most semi-private rooms, the most shared accommodations. So we had the most cases and very unfortunately the most deaths in that home. So very quickly, we again flipped design saying, hey, we need to make this building, these homes as protective as it could be for those living with dementia. Thirdly, our person-directed philosophy of care that I told you all we started with, again, due to really good Eden alternative principles, we started with the individual, changing the mind of the individual. Then we started with the organization, changing the mind and the culture of the organization. And lastly was the building. How would we build this community? So that was the order of thinking. And extremely importantly, what came out of this project is us wanting to build this as a model that could be replicated. As I said earlier, not everyone's going to be able to take 10 years from start to finish. A big part of us doing that was the financing of it, which I'll touch a very little bit on. But this project is a $37.5 million project, which was partially funded by equity in two main areas. One was through philanthropy, fundraising, about $7.5 million from that. And then another between $7 and $7.5 million of subsidy from the new market tax credits. So I see it as a true sort of public-private combination to get to that equity number. And then of course about the remaining 24 million is what we financed. Interesting part about that financing, we took the time. That's why it took 10 years. We wanted to pay down all our existing debt in order for us then to be able to jump in to the debt portion of this. Lastly, extremely important with this model, no qualms about it. This model is designed, in our case, for individuals living with dementia. We looked at our existing population. We're seeing 70% of them living with dementia. People say, hey, we're not in the business of dementia. Absolutely, we are in the business of taking care of individuals with dementia. That is the majority of those who live in nursing homes. So this building was carefully designed with them in mind. The end result we have with this is households of 12. We have 6 households of 12, 72 residents in total, all living with dementia. I can tell you that we are 100% full in this new building right now. Every one of them in the building right now, all 72 are on Medicaid. Every one of those on Medicaid. The interesting part, which I call sort of inverse economics to this, is that the existing building, which was significantly renovated, included taking out all our semi-private rooms and converted them into private rooms. In the existing part of that building, which is going to be 58 private rooms, very nice private rooms, our idea there is to work hard in the Medicare program, absolutely sprinkle in some private pay, and sort of have that payer mix that can subsidize the high level of Medicaid indigent care that we're doing in the other side of it. Very interesting. Before I close, you could go on to the next slide if there is one, but the one part of this that I would be remiss not to speak about, and Carrie asked me to speak about it, is sort of our love and care for our staff. I think as an industry, we have gotten this wrong generally for the last several decades. I am a strong proponent of resident care and the resident coming first. But I think we have taken that a bit far. I think by doing so, we have put our staff on the lowest rung of the totem pole in the nursing homes. And I think we have not shown that care, that concern for our staff. And we saw what happened there during COVID. So we look at care partnerships slightly differently. Again, going with the Eden principle of the Eden Golden Rule, which clearly says that, if you take care of your staff, do unto your staff as they would do unto the elders. I was a nursing home administrator for many years prior to being CEO of this organization. And the one trick to good nursing home care, I would tell young administrators, is take good care of your staff. Everything else trickles down from that. So you'll see here a lot of activity, which is staff engaging with our residents. They love our residents. They take that passion, and we in turn take really good care of our staff. So a big part of these design elements, whether you look at our outdoor areas, which are dramatic, splendid, are for our staff to enjoy as well, are for their children to come to the community and enjoy as well. Every one of these households also has a staff break room. It amazes me that I have never seen a nursing home, even those built in the last few years, built with a staff break room. I've been in many. I've seen many nursing homes that a smart administrator has converted a room into a staff break room. But we need to put that in our planning elements. Staff need a space for respite, a space to take a break, a space to just rest a little bit. It is an important design element. One of my soapboxes now, as I go around and I see projects, is to advocate for some space in your communities for your staff to have that. I think that sends a message to them that we care. And that message is going to convert into their caring for our elders. I can go on and on. I don't want to go too much further in lieu of because of the time, and I want to leave space for the other speakers. But anyone is happy to reach out to me. You know, I'm sure Jack or anyone would share my contact. We are open for tours. I'm happy to come to you. Part of our mission, part of our organization's mission is to be the thought leader and to share this with the community. The way we have given this is we said this is a gift to the community and to the elders living in our communities. Thank you very much, Carrie.
Thanks, Deke. We appreciate it, you sharing and telling everybody about it. Deke and I have had a lot of conversations about
Carrie's broken up.
Carrie, we didn't get that, but now
You're muted, Carrie.
sorry, I lost my signal for a minute. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
What I was saying quickly is, Deke and I've spent a lot of time talking about staff and how you care for them and all the rest. And, you know, one of the things I say very often is, as we're looking at transformation and looking at innovation, that we need to be making sure that we're making the lives better for both our residents and those that care for them. Because I 100% agree with Deke. If you can't take care of your staff, they will never take care of your residents. Okay, go ahead, Michelle. Sorry.
Thanks. So, well, through the beauty of Zoom, now we're going from Atlanta to Lincoln, Nebraska, and I'll pass the mic over to Jeff All. Thanks for joining.
You bet. I assume you can hear me all right? Well, thank you for the invite, and Deke, thanks for that information. As an architect, I love seeing projects getting built. I think that was a great project. And one of the things that you said near the beginning that I want to mention is that you said when you got ready to do this project, you wanted to make sure that you kept care as the number one most important thing. The building was secondary to that. And care obviously is what helps to define your culture. So I'm going to share my screen here. Everybody see this? Okay, so I wanted to bring that up because the name of the firm that I own is called Architecture. And to play off what Deke had said, our name was developed based on some research that I did where I lived in nursing homes. And if I took every issue that I experienced in the 21 days that I stayed in a nursing home, and I allocated that on a percentage basis, about 90 to 92% of every issue that I ran into had nothing to do with the building. So Deke is correct. Certainly a building is important, and certainly the spaces and how they interact with each other are critically important to the operation and the success of a nursing home or an assisted living or memory care. But about 90 to 92% of every issue I experienced only had to deal with either the culture of the home that I was living in or the relationships. So again, Deke, to your point of making sure we're caring for the people that are living there. When we talk about relationships, we're not talking about just the relationships between the staff and the resident, but also the relationships between the staff and other staff members. And I feel so strongly about that we literally put the word cure in the middle of my name. Hence, we provide architecture rather than architecture. So I want to move forward on my presentation by starting out with just an overview of how I think most architects design, right? We have so many rules and regulations to define how we design a home, especially in healthcare, that what I believe we find ourselves doing is that it drives us to design really to everyone. That's the goal, and we need to do that. We need to design homes literally for everyone. But what I want to do is to show you what we have done through our model, what we call a cure home, that we think is a new model of active living that we think will really exceed everybody's expectations, because as you can see here, we have 6 keys to seamless aging in place. In other words, if you look at the bottom two, the two on the left there that I've highlighted in yellow, of course, we design accessibility solutions, and we also design adaptability elements into the homes that we're designing. But we also consider 4 aspects that oftentimes other architects or maybe even the owners of communities don't look into, and those being neighborhood living, life care assistance, carefree living, and then making sure that where they're moving is a home health ready community. So we try to take a more holistic approach to home design. So if we look at the neighborhood living, or these 6 key aspects to seamless aging in place, the neighborhood living, life care assistance, and carefree living, accessibility solutions, and adaptable design, as well as making sure that it's home health ready. What we do is we take that and run that through a pretty extensive process of evaluation when we go into a design process. This graphic identifies how we approach every project that we enter. So here I've highlighted those 6 keys to seamless aging in place. Now what I've done is I've highlighted the key design aspects. So each of those seamless aging in place aspects, features can fall into one of 4 different design aspects that revolve around either accessibility, environment, construction, or adaptability. Within those 4 key design aspects, we have identified currently 32 specific elements that go into the design of each home that we design. And when I say home, I'm talking each room, each unit, each apartment, in some cases, and what I'm going to show you here in a little bit, even single family houses. So these 32 elements comprise several things that we consider. Some of them are based around accessibility. Others are designed or based around adaptability. So on this graphic, you can see an example of an apartment that we have done, where the items that are highlighted as accessibility include things like 0 entry showers, 3-foot wide doors at every door where an individual is going to pass through, and 4-foot wide minimum passageways and 5-foot turning radiuses at what we call areas of congestion, a location where somebody in a wheelchair may get to a hallway and need to turn around. We want to make sure that they can do so. In other words, it's fully accessible at all times in all locations. And then when we get into the adaptable side of things, we look at things like the bathroom cabinets and closet shelvings that can be replaced with either benches, or they can be raised, or they can be lowered with minimal structural changes. Countertops that can be lowered to wheelchair heights in the kitchen are important. And we make sure that all those doorways that are designed to be 3-foot wide at move-in can be easily increased to 3-foot 6 wide. And what we've done is we've modified the structure so those doors can be installed without modifying the structure, and we make sure light switches and all electrical is out of the way, so that literally a person can come in, cut out the existing door, and slide the next door in. And then finally, we've addressed things such as structural supports for grab bars that can be built into walls at any location in a bathroom, not just the location that you would expect for somebody that wants you to comply with the Americans with Disabilities Act. So again, we go through this process, and then at the end, the bottom left, you can see that I've highlighted how we do this compliance review, and we make sure that every home that we've designed for our clients that wish us to do so meets those strenuous requirements. So I started this conversation, and what I said was that I think most architects have a tendency to design around rules and regulations and design guidelines, because we kind of have to, right? We get into the design of a bathroom, we got to make sure we meet all those requirements. But from my standpoint, when we do that, it really drives us as designers to make sure that we're designing for everyone, again, which we need to. But a cure home is an intentional process that we have developed to ensure that we're designing for someone, not just everyone. In other words, custom designed for the individual, because different people need different things. And we believe that's critical to our design process. We did some research a few years ago when we wanted to study what the driving force behind the market for senior living was and how we needed to change what we were designing. And we came up with several aspects. I want to highlight one, because if I could make a recommendation to the people that are listening today, I would say make sure you take into consideration the generational differences. 15, 20, 30 years ago, and yes, I'm old enough to have done this, we were designing largely for the greatest and the silent generations. Those people were influenced by World War II, the Cold War, the Great Depression, and their traits are conformity. They don't typically question authority. They're very loyal. They save and they prepare. The one word that I think that sums them up the best is that they're generally selfless people. On the other hand, when you move to the baby boomers and the Gen Xers, of which unfortunately I'm one, our influences were world media, civil rights, the energy crisis, and Watergate. And our traits are that we're about anti-establishment, we're about equality, diversity, and consumerism. And if there's one word that generally defines those from those two generations, it's self-focused. Well, you can see just in that, whether you're selfless versus self-focused, you can see that the need for housing to support the new generation that we are now designing for, the baby boomers and soon the Gen Xers, is that we have to make sure that we are designing to meet their specific needs, not the specific needs of a general population. And I'm bringing this up because I want to share with you a project that is probably almost the complete opposite of what we just saw from Deke. And of course, we need housing for all people. So this is kind of exciting to us, and I want to share this. This is a site plan. It's a computer-generated image. So these aren't built yet. They just broke ground on these, but these are 32 individual single-family homes for people in the middle to upper middle class, potentially the upper class. And what I wanted to show was that we were asked to design cure homes in a single-family model for a new urbanism design. In other words, we've got craftsman style here, we have prairie style, we have Tudor. And our goal was to design this community that would meet the design aspects of homes that these people might have moved into or when they were children or lived in, but with interiors that don't look institutional. So this is an example of the interiors that were designed. They're elegant homes, they're beautiful homes, but they have been designed, as we term it, for ageless design. We have addressed accessibility in many cases, but in almost every case, then we have made sure that they are adaptable to meet the needs of people that are going to age in place. Essentially, they could live there to end of life as long as their resources allow them to do so. So that's one end of the scale. Now I want to talk about something that I think is probably near and dear to the heart of Michelle and Carrie, and that is the Einstein option. And I found this very interesting. They introduced me to this a few months ago. It's a small home model, which is defined in the tier 2 of the Einstein option. I would suggest that everybody that doesn't know about this, contact either Carrie or Michelle and have them send you some information. It's a very interesting concept. Under tier 2, it talks about private rooms, the need that each home within small home model has private rooms, private bathrooms, shared living, dining, socialization, and cooking spaces, and easy access to common outdoor green spaces within the community. Well, we actually started by looking at a small home model that we called, again, the Cure Home, but this is our version of a small home model yet to be constructed, but ready to be constructed. In our case, located in Nebraska, many of these small communities across the state, in fact, we're over 30 to 35 homes, nursing homes have closed in the last 4 to 5 years, simply because they don't have well, for many reasons. Nursing services are not available. The fact that many of the homes are being lived in by people that don't have the financial means. So it's a lot of Medicaid individuals. So unfortunately in Nebraska, we have nursing homes that are closing down. The communities in the state of Nebraska are still, relatively speaking, thriving, and they need workforce housing. So they are looking for opportunities to take a city block. So if you take a look at this drawing, This represents one city block, and turn that land over, in some cases, essentially for free. And they will help and bring in the services within the community and then design housing for aging on that site. And if you go back to the notes that I had listed there related to the tier 2 for a small home, we talked about neighborhood design, which you can see here. There's actually 4 neighborhoods of 4 homes here, but they're tied together with a common garage that is set in the middle of these homes that does a couple things. First of all, it sets the garage behind all of the housing. So when you drive around the block, what you see is everybody's front door. 16 front doors instead of 16 garages. But it also provides for a single garage in the center of this space so that everybody has enclosed garage with direct access to their own community for 4 people. This is also scalable, which I'll talk about here in a little bit. Everybody has their private front door. They have shared common spaces in a community courtyard. Now I want to show you the scalability of this, right? So I showed you before that there's 16 homes here, but these were actually designed to allow you to build only 4. And then as the need arises, you could add 4 on and another 4 and another 4 till you get to 16. And it is designed so they're connected at the garage. So construction can proceed with phase 2, 3, and 4 without interrupting phase 1 in their life. And when we designed this cure home, those 6 elements that you're seeing listed over here on the right, the small neighborhood, life care assistance, carefree living, accessible, adaptable, and home care ready, are those 6 primary elements that we make sure we design into each of our cure homes. So you can see how that then translates into the actual 16-unit home that would fit on one city block, which comprises the small home model, which is something, as I said, that we're very proud of. But that is what I had to present. That's what I wanted to show you guys today. I think it's kind of exciting. I'll turn it back over to you.
Thanks, Jeff. So when Jeff mentioned the Einstein option, the biggest thing about Einstein, no matter what tier we're talking about, is innovation. You know, everything from resident-directed care to the small house model to workforce solutions. And workforce solutions are not even just how do we hire and retain. It also can look at, does there need to be possible housing built, affordable housing for residents, you know, for staff. So the innovation is our whole major component. We actually were notified a few days ago that we are going to meet with CMMI very soon, Center for Medicaid and Medicare Innovation, to talk about the Einstein option. And we're moving forward. We want to see this. And anybody who has questions, email me. I will send you the information. If I can't answer your question, I will connect you with Ann Montgomery or Joe Angelelli, who wrote it, because we want to educate everybody and we want people to be excited about what could happen for people, you know, receiving care. And part of what the Einstein will also be is it doesn't have to all be nursing homes. It can be, like Jeff talked about, some independent living or type of facilities where the care goes to them because people want to age in place. Nobody wants to live in a nursing home. So Ron, it's up to you now.
Sorry, excuse me, but I did put the link in the chat for everybody who wants to know more about the Einstein option. From it's linked to our website. Okay, sorry about that. And now we're going to the Upper West Side and Ron Bruno.
Thanks, Michelle, and thanks, Carrie, and thanks, Jeff and Dee, and thanks for having me here. So I'm going to share my screen. Let's see. All right, so Carrie was talking about innovation. So I'm going to talk about what we consider an innovative model of assisting people to age in place. It's called Naturally Occurring Retirement Community, which many of you might have heard of. And I'm going to talk about what a NORC, N-O-R-C, is, and then talk a little bit about a particular NORC where I am, Morningside Retirement Health Services. And then briefly at the end, just We did have a major renovation in 2017 that tried to be mindful. It's a community space, not a residential space, but tried to be mindful of what type of community space an older population might be interested in coming to. So first let me, so first to just define what a NORC is. A NORC is just a demographic description. So if you have a neighborhood or an apartment complex, which is the case where I am, it's 6 high-rise buildings where more than approximately half of the households include somebody over this age of 60, you have a NORC, a naturally occurring retirement community, as defined by the state and city of New York. So it's naturally occurring, people are aging in place, people don't typically move into a NORC, it's just that they don't move out. It's multi-generational, so we have many young families moving in, we have many young families living here, and as I said, it's defined by those demographics. Now, by contrast, a NORC program is, and this was said by Fred Vladeck, a NORC program is an innovative model that coordinates a broad range of social and healthcare services to support the senior residents of a NORC. So the NORC is just this, this neighborhood, as I say, or complex. A NORC program is in place to serve that concentration of older adults. I always give the example where I live in an apartment complex, which is a NORC. I mean, I have no doubt it's a NORC. Most of the people around me are over the age of 60, or many of them are, certainly more than half of the apartments. But we don't have a NORC program. And there are these NORCs all over the city and all over the country. Areas where there's a large density of older adults as the population has aged. And a NORC program is a kind of least intrusive way to address that concentration of older adults in certain neighborhoods or certain complexes. So the goals of a NORC program are to assist older adults to live safely and comfortably at home in their communities. So we're promoting aging in place. We're fostering health promotion through exercise programs, lectures on health issues, and so forth. We do try to create a sense of community. So we do have many volunteers. In our case, we have over 100 volunteers who typically live in the NORC and typically are older adults themselves. However, like during the pandemic, where older adults were advised to stay home, we reached out to the younger population and asked for volunteers, and it was very quite moving that many younger people came forward and offered to volunteer to do shopping, to pick up supplies at the drugstore for our older adults who were advised to stay at home. And it really, really brought out how there is a sense of community in a NORC program. And we're also trying to promote lifelong learning. I'll go into a little more detail a little bit in a later slide. So just to give you an idea, NORCs have kind of taken hold in New York City, and New York State more than anywhere. So in New York, the state of New York has a funding stream of NORC programs, as does the city. So there are 23 NORC programs in the state and 20 NNORC. I'll tell you what that is in a minute. And there are 60 NORC programs sponsored by the city of New York. And some of those are overlapping. So in our case, we get funding both from the state and the city to provide this, to pay for the staff that provides the services to assist people to age in place. So some of the services we provide, and the core services are really what enable people to remain living at home is what we've found. Case management and case assistance, which are services provided by our social workers, and healthcare management and healthcare assistance provided by our full-time nurse. And what we found is that to successfully help people age in place, it's pretty intensive. So our social workers and our nurse are pretty much going from apartment to apartment all day long. We do have a large number of people who have dementia living at home. And many of them do have 24-hour care that we can help facilitate. But it requires a lot of monitoring, it requires a lot of assistance to make it work. So our nurse and our social workers, and of course we have many people who do not have 24-hour care. They may have various physical conditions, chronic conditions that require, monitoring. And so our social workers and our nurse are going, as I say, from apartment to help people remain living in their apartments with this kind of help. And we found it really requires that kind of intensive care. And another core part of a NORC program is health promotion, which I'll get into a little bit more in a minute. So NORC programs are in New York State in diverse settings. A NORC, what's called a classic NORC, are in apartment buildings or housing communities. As I said, we have over 1,000 apartments and 6 high-rise buildings. That's kind of a classic NORC. But there's also an NNORC, which are neighborhood naturally occurring retirement communities in low-rise buildings, not more than 6 stories. For example, Albany has a NORC, and I've seen video of it, and it's it's a typical neighborhood with a lot of private homes, and that's a NORC, and it delivers the same kind of services as a classic NORC would, perhaps not as conveniently. One of the conveniences of a classic NORC is we're just steps away. If we have a program going on right now on music appreciation, people only have to walk as no more than a city block to get here and to be with their neighbors and to appreciate the program and to maybe hang out afterwards. So this is us. We're Morningstar Retirement and Health Services. We've been around since the mid-60s. That picture is, as I said, we renovated in 2017. That's our assembly member from representing us in Albany, Danny O'Donnell. And that's the architect, Matthias Holwich, from the firm HWKN. And that is Suzanne Wagner, who did the interior design. This is the cafe area, and this was just a welcoming people into the new space day. So I won't go into detail here, but gives you an idea. As I say, 6 high-rise buildings, about 1,000 apartments. There are about 630 older adults, ranging from people who are still working to people, I think our oldest resident is 106, still living at home with 24-hour care in place. In our case, about 54% of the apartments include at least one older adult. Oh, yeah, and there's a picture. So there's 6 of those buildings. It's really on a beautiful campus. It's hard to believe it's in the middle of Manhattan. It's on one, what they call super block. Was originally two city blocks. So there's beautiful landscaping and beautiful paths to walk along. A little bit of our history, actually first started up in '63, and the final bullet point, we were designated a NORC in 1995, which is when the NORC funding began. So we have an interdisciplinary team of clinicians, social work, nursing. We have one home health aide who does cluster care. He does like laundry and shopping for people, for those residents who may not be able to do that on their own anymore and just needs that assistant. Maybe doesn't need a home health aide yet, but can use some help with laundry and shopping. We also work with the Mount Sinai Hospital Visiting Doctors Program, people who need home visits from a doctor. Example of some of our programs. So we have health promotion, life and lifelong learning. So these all take place in our space. Yoga classes, Tai Chi, dancing classes, creative arts classes, writing, Circle of Hands, which is a knitting kind of program, art programs, a storytelling group, discussion groups, current events, women's group, men's group, and various support groups. And we also have guest speakers and technology classes. So this is the space. This is kind of the before and the after. This was before it became somewhat cluttered. This was taken before we actually moved in. And it gives you some idea of the design. And you can see outside, there are trees, there is greenery, and part of the design idea was to, because it is on a nice green space, was to try to pull that into the inner space. And some of the color and the use of wood. And I'm not an architect, I'm not a designer, so I probably might not explain this as well as somebody who is, but you kind of get a feel for it, that when you're in the space, you kind of feel like you're connected to the outdoors. And the white, so these are grab bars. So that was kind of built into the space. So it was a way of, creating, a very beautiful space, but at the same time being functional. And here's another room. So this is a room where we have meetings. It's a double room. These doors close, so you can have two activities going on at the same time. There's a large screen in both rooms. For larger events, you can you can open it up. And the same room with people sitting there. This gives you an idea of a kind of a typical. So we showed a movie here yesterday. So we used a large screen, of course, make it somewhat darkened, and about 25, 30 people can fit comfortably in the space. And again, it's not just coming to the activity, it's meeting your neighbors. And this is the area we call the cafe. And we have computers, we have Wi-Fi, we have magazines and newspapers around, which you don't see in this picture. We now have a microwave there. We have an air fryer there. We have a coffee maker on that counter space. And those things are going all day long, maybe not the air fryer, but they're available all day long. So people come in, hang out, they can bring in their laptops or their tablets and connect to the Wi-Fi, or they can use the Macs here, or they can sit down and read the newspaper. And again, the big part of it is hanging out with your neighbor. And there's two people. And this is just an example of an office. That's my office before it became much more cluttered in the past 7 years. And this just shows some of the design elements. So a lot of things were made to create a lot of space. We have a lot of closet space, but easy to manipulate. So these doors kind of close one on each other and are easy to use. We also have what's called Nora flooring. So the flooring is a special design element that is easy for wheelchairs and walkers to roll on, but at the same time is not a hard surface in case somebody does have a fall. So it's a specially designed surface as well. The chairs also have held up very well over 7 years and are specially designed to be comfortable and sturdy. And I think that's it.
Thanks, Ron. There's a lot of questions in the chat. So let me first, there's one question here that I could answer for people. Somebody asked, what about modifying your own home to make it accessible? So it's a very difficult process, and I'm talking from experience. Even first of all, it's the funding. It's very expensive. And even going in and trying to, modify a bathroom to make it safer and more ADA compliant for somebody in their own home, you are restricted to the space that is there. It's not like a new build or moving to somewhere that was built for them. And like I said, I'm talking from experience. And when we did it when my son was at home, and we did this 15 or 20 years ago, you're also very limited, if you do qualify for any funding, it is limited of what any funding program will help you with. So, we wound up with the bathroom that was like half compliant for what my son needed. And we still wound up with, it wasn't enough, and he would wind up accidentally taking a fall and winding up in the bathtub head first, because it happened. So I think everybody should get to stay at home, but making that happen is difficult. So Ron, somebody asked, and I think I know the answer. Your whole program is nonprofit, right?
Correct, yes, we're a nonprofit.
Okay, because somebody asked who owned Morning Star, and I was like, I don't think anybody. I think it's a nonprofit. So, they're asking, like, in comparison, what does this cost to another? Comparatively cost compared to other systems?
Is that for me, Carrie?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, what we like to point out is it's very cost effective. If you look at it from a public funding point of view, because what we're doing is we're keeping people, not having to go into a facility where, the costs are considerably higher. And we also keep a lot of people out of the emergency room. So when you look at it from a public funding point of view, we're costing the state and city much less dollars. As far as an individual, all of the services are at no cost because we're getting funding from the city and the state. So our nurse, our social workers are doing these visits and providing case management, healthcare management at no cost. The only things that cost is sometimes we'll have a bus trip or something that we might charge, a nominal fee for.
Okay, no, that makes sense. And again, like we said, all of these things where Einstein option is talking about innovation. And, to me, innovation is also creativity. And I think as we move forward, whether it is with something that follows like a NORC or something like Deke's Home or somewhere in the middle between what Jeff's doing, I think these are the things that we're going to wind up looking at through Einstein, hopefully, and figure out how to improve this system, because there is no perfect answer that every one person is going to work for everybody. We need options, we need opportunities, but we need to get rid of the antiquated system that we're living in today.
Also, you should explain that Einstein is an acronym. It's not, we're not talking about E equals MC squared. Einstein is short for Evaluating Innovation in Nursing Home Systems to End Institutionalization. And this is a program that is that we have on our website and that Carrie is very deeply involved in promoting. So that is what Einstein means.
Right. So there was one other question for Ron that I think will be, I don't know what the answer will be at all. Somebody asked, how do you deal with both the religious and the cultural differences when you're in that kind of setting? Because you have a lot of people in a still tight space, per se.
Well, we try to be as inclusive as possible. We have a pretty diverse staff. The population we deal with, there's a large Chinese-speaking population, so we try to have some programs. We have it's called a Life Story Club, so it's a group that's led in Chinese. I would say something about this community. It's been around. There's been a sense of cooperation for many years. So even outside of what we do, it's a true cooperative in the original sense of the word. In New York City, a lot of cooperatives were built in the 40s and 50s, and with public spaces, like there's a theater space here. So I think that makes our job a lot easier.
Okay.
There's a question about family councils. I guess that's for you too, Ron. Do they help at all?
Now, remember, no, I mean, we work a lot with families, but remember, people are living independently. So people, are living in the apartment they've lived in their whole lives. It's just that, their circumstances may have changed, so that they may need some assistance from us. But, they're living independently. So, as well, yeah, we work a lot with families, but not with a family council per se.
Ron,
And
are you okay if we share your contact information with anybody?
Sure.
Okay, so if you reach out to us through the website, I know one person at least asked that we will make sure we get you Ron's contact information. And what else do we have, Michelle? Because we are pretty much out of time.
yeah, I guess we are sort of short on time. There was a question about, maybe you sort of touched it, Ron. How do you calculate the cost savings?
I don't think there's been any study done, and I don't know if we have exact numbers, but just from anecdotes, a lot of people do not go into, very few of our people move into a facility. So, when you look at the cost of a facility versus the cost of being at home, there's quite a difference, but we haven't done any specific calculation.
And I
Okay.
guess for Jeff, some people had questions about the prices of the homes that you were showing, and maybe that's our last question.
I don't know what the owner's gonna ultimately sell those. Actually, they're gonna lease the ones that I showed the example of. I believe their cost of construction costs are in the $250 a square foot, which in Nebraska is kind of high. But that's with a lot of amenities. So we are looking at an option now where we're reducing that cost to get it closer to $200 a square foot to be more competitive in the middle market.
Right, but even with, your cost per square foot higher, you're also adding the one thing that a lot of people are gonna have to go back and do later, which is the accessibility. So, you're gonna, in an aging in place community, you're gonna either pay for it at the front end or the back end, because eventually the accessibility and the accommodations are needed.
Right, and we didn't get into all the specifics, but like we've got storm shelters built in for every individual home. It's at grade. We have wiring set up so they can add a generator at any time. So if there's a storm, they can stay in their own home even if they lose power. So there's a lot of things like that that do add to the cost. Yes.
This has been great.
So I've put Ron's email in the chat for those who want to reach out. And I want to thank everybody for a very full hour. We have a lot to think about, especially as baby boomers who are self-focused, myself. And then I want to remind everybody too that we're going to meet again on September 24th, when we're going to talk about gray and green mobilizing generations to fight climate change. So now that we have our roofs over our head, we have to figure out how to reduce the air conditioning. Anyway, thanks to everybody, and see you next month.
Have a good day, everyone.
So that was very informative. Carrie, are we staying on, or?
I'm waiting to see how many people we might have to jump off, and then I'd say
Okay.
let's just end it,
Yeah.
and then we'll,
See you later. Bye.
bye.